The simplest way to avoid flood damage is to not build in an area that will flood. Flood regulations are the best way for towns to restrict future development in these risky zones. However, in places such as Vermont, many structures have already been built in flood zones, some to harness the power of water, and most before there were even any maps of where floods can happen. On a sunny day, they can be a very pretty spot.
So this is the upper Farmbrook Motel site, and it's hard to imagine, but there used to be a cute little motel here, and the way it was set up, it was really neat. The main part of the motel was actually over this little brook. During Irene, that brook went crazy and basically took out the whole underside of the main part of the motel, so we had to close the motel, obviously, and it also took out the access roads, so there was no way to get into the motel.
Flooding is a risk beyond the areas shown on the FEMA maps. Most streams are too small for FEMA to map, but they can still have significant flood risk. This stream is Roaring Brook in Plymouth, and this is the picture inside of the house next to Roaring Brook. And now you can see what the site looks like after the house has been removed. By the way, they named streams Roaring Brook for a reason, so if the stream next to you is a small stream, but it's named Roaring Brook, that is a hint. Other areas seem fine and are well above the water, but FEMA maps only show the risk of the water rising, or what we call inundation, when the risk may be the river is going to move sideways, especially if it has sandy banks. This house was well above the stream until the stream eroded sideways and carved out the land underneath it.
This site was one of the most impressive buyouts. This is in the town of Pittsfield. And this was that white house that got all askew during the flood. People were actually in the house before that. Some neighbors helped rescue them and all. Quite dangerous, but everybody were able to make it. But it's not obvious on a day like today how high that river can get, how dangerous it is, and how high the water actually was during Irene. And this gives you an example. That's where the water was, up here.
Some areas, it is hard to tell that you're at flood risk because you cannot even see the river. However, flat areas such as farm fields are an indication that the river has roamed that area, and that's why we call them floodplains. This sign shows the actual flood height of the river far across the fields. And as you can see as we pan away, that sign down next to the road on the left. On this site, the river has moved sideways so much that even the river is no longer in the mapped FEMA flood zone. The property owner is losing their driveway and can no longer safely get to their house. Their house has not been damaged. However, it is a good candidate for a buyout because it is unusable due to flood damage to the property. Vermont has mapped the areas at risk from the sideways movement of rivers and streams, what we also call lateral erosion. And these areas at risk we call river corridors. Again, you can ask your regional planning office for help finding these maps or use the links below. So there are many ways to see if you might be at risk, but sooner or later, Mother Nature will also let you know. Just because a property has not flooded in 50 years or even 100 years does not mean it is not at risk. Storms are growing more intense, and yesterday's rare flood will keep becoming more and more frequent. A 100-year flood doesn't happen every 100 years. Vermont has experienced several 100-year floods in just the last 20 years. So how does a buyout happen? Buyouts can happen before a flood, but usually happen afterwards. In those cases, a flood has come along and severely damaged the property, sometimes to the point where the site is unbuildable. The owner may have just escaped with their life and lost all of their belongings. In this house, the owner literally leapt out of the house as it was calving off into the stream. However, after floods, owners are caught between wanting to be safe and not losing what is their largest investment. Financial pressure may make them try to rebuild or sell their property quickly at a significant loss. Both of these options keep people in harm's way. The beauty of a buyout is that it can avoid the future flood damage and not financially ruin these families. That is because buyouts involve purchasing the property for what it was worth before the flood. It is a sort of disaster time machine. An appraiser will develop an appraisal of the site as if the flood did not yet happen. The town's attorney will do a title search to make sure the property is clear to sell, and then it is just like any other sale.
So this is actually where the store was, and the gas island was here. And we found during plans for demolition that there was a culvert that comes from over by that sign all the way over to the stream that went underneath the island with the gas pumps. And so we were able to what we call daylight this little culvert so that any surface water coming through that has time to settle in this culvert.
1,200 yards of material were removed from this site, giving the river more floodplain in future events.
So the important thing to understand is that this was not the house site. The house site was there. The river was not here before the flood. The river actually used to be way over there behind those trees.
This house washed away and was destroyed, sticking under a downstream bridge. Other buyouts can be used as parks, some buyouts have federal funding that only pays 75% of the flood value, but others can pay up to 100%. Programs that pay 100% are best, as that way the owner is made whole and the river gets to keep what it wants. Buyouts are always a voluntary purchase of a property, and the buyer is usually the town where the property lies. Towns may be reluctant to lose property value, but they also don't want to endanger lives in future floods or have an abandoned house blighting a neighborhood. Buyouts enable the properties to be cleaned up, the buildings to be demolished and removed, and the site to be safely put to bed. State and regional agencies, such as regional planning commissions, can assist with handling the paperwork that towns may not want to deal with, making buyouts less of an administrative burden. After the sale, the town has the easement on the property that ensures it will never be built on again, and the building is demolished and the site is ceded over. Choosing to do a buyout means that there will never be another tragedy on the site, another dramatic rescue that endangers our first responders, another loss of a family's heirlooms, or another family made homeless. This video is supported through funds from the Federal Emergency Management Agency.